You might think the Ford Falcon was just a small, cheap car built for grandpas, a simple machine from the post-war era. But don't be fooled by its modest appearance. Beneath that plain sheet metal lies a treasure trove of engineering, from clever design and practical mechanics to a deep influence on American car culture. The Falcon wasn't just basic transportation. It was the very first car for millions of Americans. A place where people learned to drive, to wrench, and to love a machine. You might be surprised to learn it launched entire vehicle lineages, inspired backyard races, and became a garage legend across the country. So before you shrug this car off, take a seat. In today's video, we'll uncover 10 hidden truths about the Falcon. And maybe you'll realize, sometimes the simplest and most honest things leave the deepest marks. Number 1. The reverse angle rear window. At first glance, you might overlook this detail on the Ford Falcon, but pause for a moment and look at the rear window. Unlike most cars of the era, where the rear glass sloped forward for better aerodynamics, the Falcon went in the opposite direction, a rear window that leaned backward, a design known in styling circles as a reverse rake. To many, it seemed like just a visual gimmick to grab attention in the showroom. And yes, it certainly looked futuristic, evoking the space-age aesthetic that was wildly popular in the late 1950s and early 1960s. But few realize this was actually a thoughtful engineering decision. The reverse slope allowed rainwater to slide off the glass easily. No need for an expensive rear wiper, saving manufacturing costs. Plus, the angle added extra headroom for rear passengers, making the compact Falcon feel more spacious. The result? The Falcon delivered cost savings while offering a modern and distinctive look without compromising function. This small detail perfectly captures Ford's smart design philosophy. Innovation not just for show, but for real-world benefit. A simple change, yet one that made the Falcon instantly recognizable from behind, even decades later. Number 2. The wonder of a simple dashboard. Step inside the Ford Falcon, and the first thing you'll notice isn't flashing lights, digital displays, or a mess of buttons. It's a dashboard that's shockingly simple. One large speedometer front and center, and a handful of basic controls right where you need them. Ford called it driver-focused design. But in truth, they were aiming for ease of use, for everyone. Remember, this was an era when many Americans were getting behind the wheel for the very first time. They didn't want to feel overwhelmed. They wanted a friendly, intuitive experience. Just get in, turn the key, and go. This approach also helped reduce production costs, making the Falcon more appealing to middle-income families. But here's the twist. That simplicity gave the Falcon's interior an unexpectedly modern feel. Even compared to pricier cars of the day, its dashboard looked clean, tidy, and intentional. No clutter, no distractions. Ask anyone who learned to drive in a Falcon, and they'll remember that feeling, the confidence that came from not being overwhelmed by technology. Number 3. Speed column-mounted transmission. For many Americans growing up after World War II, the Ford Falcon wasn't just a car. It was the first vehicle they ever drove, and its standout feature was the 3-speed column-mounted shifter, affectionately known as 3 on the tree. Today, that setup may seem outdated, but in the early 1960s, it was a major leap forward. Many compacts still had floor-mounted manual shifters, clunky and intimidating, especially for new drivers or those used to automatics. Ford designed the Falcon's gearbox with modern synchronization, allowing smooth shifting without double clutching. This made learning to drive less stressful. and parents felt more at ease handing over the keys. Driving schools loved the Falcon for this reason, and with the shifter on the column, the front bench seat could fit 3 passengers, a practical bonus rarely seen today. But beyond functionality, it represented something bigger: freedom. The Falcon made driving feel approachable, not frightening. It opened the door for millions of Americans to enter the world of cars with confidence from that very first shift. Number 4. The 144 cubic inch Inline-six. Pop the hood of the Ford Falcon, and you'll find a sight familiar to countless Americans of the era: the 144 cubic inch Inline-six engine, a power plant that wasn't flashy but became a mechanical heartbeat for generations. On paper, it wasn't impressive: around 90 horsepower, 6 cylinders in a straight line, and a basic single-barrel carburetor. But that simplicity was its strength. Easy to fix, easy to learn, easy to live with. It became the mechanic's first teacher for millions. Many young wrenchers learned how to gap spark plugs, rebuild carbs, and replace gaskets for the first time on this E6. And it didn't stop with the Falcon. This engine family powered Mustangs, Fairlanes, and Mavericks for years, proving its legendary reliability. Even amateur racers saw its potential. With a few tweaks, a freer exhaust, a bigger carb, this little engine could surprise you. From dusty dirt tracks to local drag strips, it was the gateway into grassroots speed. Number 5. Lightweight chassis. The Falcon's chassis was lightweight, straightforward, and incredibly easy to strip down. That made it a bargain at junkyards: cheap, modifiable, and full of possibilities. Backyard builders quickly realized that with just a few tools, they could transform this humble commuter into a track-ready warrior. Falcons began popping up in dirt track races, drag strips, and even DIY kit cars. Its simple drivetrain, tunable inline-six, and tough 3-speed gearbox made it a perfect foundation for speed junkies on a tight budget. Even small-time pro race teams used Falcon parts for test mules because they were affordable, plentiful, and didn't require high-end expertise. It's wild to think that a grocery getter became the launch pad for so many American racing dreams. But because it was born simple, the Falcon was incredibly adaptable. And that's why it showed up not only in suburban driveways, but also at starting lines across the nation. Number 6. Classic American styling. In an era when many American compacts were dismissed as cheap cars, the Ford Falcon stood out as a stylish exception. It captured the essence of classic American design, scaled down to meet the needs and budgets of everyday families. Look closely at the Falcon's lines: crisp edges, slanted glass, and subtle tail fins that evoke the jet age, but without the excess of a Cadillac or Chrysler. It was the kind of styling that made you proud to pull into the church parking lot without emptying your wallet. Ford cleverly borrowed cues from full-size luxury cruisers, then refined them for the mainstream market. The result was a compact that looked clean, confident, and unmistakably American, far more than many imports of the time. At a moment when millions of families were trading in their pre-war relics, the Falcon arrived like a breath of fresh air. Affordable, modern, but never cheap in how it felt or looked. Even today, when you see an early Falcon at a classic car show, it's instantly recognizable. Number 7. Vacuum-powered wipers. If you've ever driven an early Ford Falcon or any American car from the early 60s, you probably remember this peculiar frustration: vacuum-powered windshield wipers. Instead of using an electric motor like modern cars, the Falcon relied on engine vacuum to operate its wipers. On paper, it was a cost-saving, mechanically simple solution. But in real life, a disaster waiting to happen. Whenever you hit the gas to pass someone in the rain, the vacuum pressure dropped, and the wipers nearly stopped. Imagine it. Pouring rain, a semi-truck spraying mist everywhere, and your windshield suddenly going blind. For many drivers, it was a laugh or cry kind of moment. Frustrating, yet unforgettable. Strangely, this flaw became part of the Falcon's personality. Old-school drivers had tricks for it, easing off the throttle mid-pass to get the wipers going again, or even retrofitting them with manual hand crank systems. Number 8. Driving school car and police car. For many Americans growing up in the 1960s and 1970s, the Ford Falcon wasn't just a car. It was their first teacher. The first car they learned to drive in. The first they ever shifted gears in. And maybe even the first one they got pulled over in. Driving schools across the United States loved the Falcon for its light steering, easy-to-use gearbox, great visibility, and uncluttered dashboard. For millions of teenagers, the Falcon was the bridge between the passenger seat and the steering wheel. But the Falcon didn't just serve in driver's ed. Many small-town police departments adopted it for patrol duty. Why? Because it was cheap, easy to maintain, lightweight, and perfect for tight city streets or rural roads. You didn't need a big V8 cruiser to write a parking ticket. The Falcon got the job done. The memories it left behind weren't about horsepower or exhaust notes, but about that first too-wide turn, the nerve-wracking license test, or the flashing red lights in your rearview mirror. For America, the Falcon was the car that taught them how to drive, how to grow up, and how to take responsibility. Number 9. The foundation of Ford's global compact strategy. Though born as a compact car for the US market, the Ford Falcon didn't stop at America's borders. It became the foundation for Ford's global small car strategy, influencing markets around the world for decades to come. In Australia, the Falcon was localized and evolved into its own line, eventually growing from a compact into a full-size performance sedan, beloved by Aussies and deeply embedded in the nation's car culture. Later models like the XR6, GT, and UTE became domestic legends. In the US, the Falcon's underpinnings were used to develop the Mustang, the revolutionary pony car launched in 1964. The Mustang borrowed the Falcon's chassis, suspension, and drivetrain elements, keeping costs low while delivering serious performance. Across South America, especially in Argentina and Brazil, the Falcon continued production for years, serving as a family car, police cruiser, taxi, and even government vehicle. It became part of the urban landscape well into the 1980s. Number 10. From budget beater to American icon. When the 1960 Ford Falcon was launched, no one imagined it would someday appear at classic car shows. It was built to be affordable, easy to own, and simple to fix. A no-frills family car for post-war America. But that simplicity became its secret weapon. The engine was easy to maintain. The engine bay was so spacious you could climb in and work, and parts were everywhere. The Falcon didn't require professional mechanics, just a dad with a wrench or a determined teenager with a garage and a dream. Over time, people realized the Falcon wasn't cheap. It was part of their story. It was the car Dad taught you to drive in, the one you and your son restored together, the car you took to school, to work, or on your first big road trip. Today, Falcons appear at classic car shows, lovingly restored with polished chrome, fresh upholstery, and a shape you recognize instantly. It doesn't need to be fast or loud, it just needs to stay true to its roots. honest, durable, and purely American. The Ford Falcon wasn't the fastest, flashiest, or most luxurious car of its time, but its honesty, durability, and simplicity made it an irreplaceable memory for millions of Americans. It didn't need to show off to be remembered. All it had to do was do its job. A dependable companion from the family garage to the American highway. What about you? Have you ever driven a Falcon? Or do you have a memory tied to one? Share your story in the comments. We'd love to hear it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss more journeys through the machines that helped shape America's history.